order. Let's do attendance.
James Schneider.
Present. We should probably add that to the agenda.
Colin Dennis.
Here.
Ron Buckles.
Present.
Joe Schleter.
Yeah.
Chuck Van Etten.
Chuck, can you hear me?
Can't undo it.
Trying.
You have him there. Chuck, can you hear me? Is Mr. Colson available?
I can go. Here we go.
Hi, Chuck. We're doing attendance. Can you just say that you're present?
Chuck, are you here?
I am.
All right. We have a quorum. Madam Clerk, are we in compliance with open meetings law?
Yes.
The agenda has been presented. Is there any questions on the agenda? Hearing none, moving on to public comment. Is there anybody present who's not on the agenda that wishes to address the committee? Ms. Kiana, can you state your name and, just state your name. Is that what we need? One and sign in.
Good morning. I'm here because I attended the county board meeting on July 16th, where the county board voted to adopt the Second Amendment resolution. And there were several things that happened during the course of that meeting that led me to attend today as well. Primarily that there were statements made by Supervisor Splendors.
So I
apologize. My name is Tish Kiana.
No, I need you to talk into the mic so that the people can hear you.
My name is Tish Kiana, Keahna. I attended the county board meeting on July 16th. At that time, the full board took up a resolution that was passed through this committee. Several people spoke in opposition as well as in favor of the resolution. Well, a handful, probably less than 10. At that time, it was also raised that there was inadequate opportunity for the community to have notice of this resolution. A couple of the board members, notably you, Supervisor Schlender, stated that this has been before this committee since November. However, after reviewing all of the agendas and minutes, that does not appear to be the case at all. There was a reference within a March agenda as a future agenda item. No action was taken that following month. If you go through all of your links, unless you've changed some of those, it does not appear in the minutes. My concern is that there was an additional, there was a lot of commentary. Supervisor Schlender, you said that that it had been gone over several times, that in fact, the individuals that were putting this forward had actually had several conversations with you, and we modified the request for that resolution. At no time was any draft, original or final, available to the public prior to July. That is not a full opportunity for the public to review this. Another board member said that the community had a month, but as you know, this meeting is immediately before the other meeting. So at the most, it would have been 2 weeks. If you look in some of your links and materials, it appears that it wasn't to be fully considered until August. There is documentation of that as well. But instead, it was pushed through last month. I also had a very difficult time because when I went to sign in, and I bring this up again, because when I went to sign in, your staff wrote for a subject for what I was here to speak about, Second Amendment, for or against. That is not the issue. The issue before this was this particular resolution as crafted. So it seems like we've taken a stance, both you, Supervisor Schlender, citing your military service, your staff placing it Second Amendment for or against, instead of allowing the community to fully discuss the resolution and its impact on community. We did not have a full opportunity to vet this or a full opportunity to see the materials behind it. Saying that this committee had been reviewing it since November is a disservice to us as a community because we did not have a part of those conversations. There's nothing in the minutes or the agendas indicating that. I would request that you put on the agenda for the next month a review on whether or not to rescind this and give the public a full opportunity to weigh in on it, rather than the very short period of time people had to review it. I can take any questions or I can finish and say thank you.
Is there any other people present that wishes to address the committee? Ms. Zilmer.
Linda Zilmer, Edgewater property owner. Earlier this morning, I sent all county supervisors an email about this morning's agenda, as well as a resend of the communications I sent to you, Chairman Schlender, County Board Chair Schuman, and the County Administrator regarding the sequence of events regarding that Second Amendment matter. So I would hope that it does come back to this committee and to the full county board. And the second item I have today has to do with another agenda item that did, or should I say an item that did not appear on this morning's agenda. And it has to do with public safety's enforcement of its own county ordinances, as well as the governor's mask order. There was an item that was pulled from the agenda about an ordinance and a resolution, and if during your meeting you can address why that was pulled. My concern is that this truly is a public safety matter. The county needs to enforce its own ordinances as well as figure out a way to address the governor's order. And I'm also concerned that now that Sawyer County is an agent of the state for so other public health matters, that it might be in violation of that responsibility if it's not enforcing the mask order with regard to the businesses and entities that the county is now responsible for inspecting. Thank you.
Anybody else who wishes to address the committee that's not on the agenda? Okay, moving on, just for clarification, public comment is an opportunity for citizens and other people who are not on the agenda to address the committee on any issue that they wish to bring up. committee will not respond on public comment because that's actually not part of it. It's supposed to be an opportunity for the committee or for the people to address the committee. So if you're waiting for questions, you're not going to get questions from the sitting committee members. If you want to stay through and speak to an issue, there's actually an item on there for discussion only, and you can partake in that part of the agenda. Moving on, we have the minutes from the last meeting. Has the committee had a chance to review those minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve, Mr. Chairman, as presented.
I have a motion from Mr. Buckholz. Ms. Dennis?
Second.
I have a second from Ms. Dennis. In discussion, is there any discussion on the minutes as presented? Mr. Van Etten, do you have anything you wish to add?
I do not.
Hearing no discussion, call for a vote. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Going on now to an agenda item that was added. It's a proclamation honoring Richard Charles Welch that was circulated to the committee yesterday. It's on the agenda for discussion and possible action. I had a discussion with the sheriff in terms of a chance for him to review, share it with his staff to see if there's any other things that should be added. I do have some additional information that talks to the amount of time that Deputy Welsh had served with the Surrey County Sheriff's Department. And so I would ask that this committee review this resolution. If there's any discussion on it, we can have that. Otherwise, I would ask that they be brought back so that the edits can be made to reflect the deputy's time with the Sheriff's Department. Ms. Dennis.
Motion to bring it back to next month's meeting.
So it's a motion to table it. Is that what you're asking? I have a motion to table the resolution.
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Buckholz in discussion. So we're going to table it so we can do the edits and then bring it to the next county board meeting. Sheriff, do you got any objections with that?
No.
Next county board meeting or next public?
Next public safety meeting. Any other discussion on the motion or any discussion on the resolution itself? Have you guys had a chance to read it, look at it?
No.
Okay, well, you guys got another month to do that. We'll make
I've
the
read
edits and then we'll, Mr. Hoff can probably circulate it for further discussion.
Was that sent out to us?
I sent it out, so I sent it out to the county board email addresses. But I'll probably have Tom do it because my computer is not the best.
I didn't get anything,
Okay.
but that could be my computer skills too.
Okay, so Tom, I'll probably send it to you when I do the edits, so you can have a chance to look at it, and then we'll get it out. All right, so I'm gonna ask for a vote on the motion to table this to the September meeting. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So Carrie, we're gonna put that on for the September meeting. Moving on to number 7. Judge Yapple, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. The only thing that I guess I have to report today is that we were scheduled
Mr. Yapple, I need you to probably move up.
to the microphone.
Yep.
Slide up here. The only thing that I have to report here today is that we were scheduled today for a jury trial. That thankfully had settled, and we were scheduled for one tomorrow, and I've just received word this morning that that one has settled. So we have not had a jury trial under our new procedures with social distancing and masking as of yet. I believe that we may have another opportunity. I don't know if next week, but the week after, I know we have jury trials scheduled. So one of these weeks, we're going to have the procedures that we've put in place implemented, and we'll need help from everybody, or at least patience from everybody while we get used to doing jury trials in this kind of situation. I'll keep everybody informed as we move along if there's any problems or if we need some help with different areas. Other than that, obviously the other issue that touch on is, and I know it's not on the agenda today, and I think this committee has done everything that it's supposed to do on it, is the addition of the second courtroom. I know that there's that proposal with the city out there, and hopefully we can get moving on that. And the board can make a full decision sooner rather than later. But other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions for the judge? Hearing none, moving on to the clerk of courts report. We have a report from the clerk. All right, moving on to the district attorneys. I don't see the district attorney present. Moving on to child support. Sokomoto.
Yes, we have worked out an agreement with the sheriff's department that they are going to take on the DNA testing while we're under COVID-19. So we really appreciate that. We don't have anyone scheduled for DNA testing right now, but when we do, they will handle it for us, and we'll do the chain of command and the correct paperwork at that time. I think that our remodeling is complete now. We lost about 5 feet to accommodate the district attorney, and the maintenance person who really did the best was Randy Armsbury. Everything looks so modern, and Janet and I are kind of jealous because we've been in that space since '92, and this is the first time anything's been done. So we really appreciate it. You barely even notice that there's, the reduced space. So I'm very happy about that. The payers are starting to use the drop boxes on both doors. We're still working on educating them to indicate that it's for child support and not for any other department. So we get the payment in a timely fashion and get it to the trust fund. And we're still pretty much working remotely. The numbers that the state has provided is only up through June, but we're still ahead of where we were in May. So even though we're working from home, the collections are still, the collections have increased since May. Right now, our main priority is doing the reviews that people are requesting due to either job loss or their child graduated or emancipated. And we try to get the parties to stipulate after we review the financial information, and if they won't stipulate, then we set it for court. So it's working for us, for our department. Working remotely is fine.
Any questions for Ms. Okamoto?
Is that something you might continue in the future, even though there isn't one after the pandemic is over?
It gives you a lot of uninterrupted time. For me, that's I would like to. I don't know how the other staff feel, but I would like to.
If that's a good tool in the toolbox, we should keep it.
I mean, I'm a block away, so if I need to get up here, I might have to get out of my pajamas, but I can get up here. Thanks, Randy.
Any other questions for Ms. Okamoto? Thank you for your report. Moving on to the sheriffs. Sheriff, you have the floor.
I'll yield to the lieutenants here, and then I'll say a few things at the end here.
Submitted the July 2020 report for patrol. Our call volume has increased roughly 10%. The shutdown as it is and the mask issues as they are hasn't kept people home and hasn't kept them out of trouble.
For the jail report, I submitted the July report in there. Our numbers are up from the previous month. With the spike in COVID cases, we're trying to do what we can to safely reduce population. On my report, you'll see that as of the 3rd, we had 5 out on electronic monitoring. That jumped up to 10 as of yesterday. We got 5 more on electronic monitoring. Other than that, I guess my report's there. If there's any questions, feel free to ask.
Has everyone had a chance to review the report that was submitted from both Lieutenant Lipinski and Lieutenant Johnson?
Yes.
Sheriff?
The chief, unfortunately, is tied up in a meeting with Berkey and the state. They're working on redoing some things on the Berkey Ridge parking lot for next year's Berkey. Hopefully that will happen. Weather and other issues, all things considered. He did submit a report there regarding the communications center as well. It's definitely been a busy summer. There's a lot of people in the area. I think we're pretty blessed to have tourism like we have it in the area, with a lot of other communities not having as many. I think our lakes and land use in our community here brings a lot of extra people here. So they're able to social distance and still enjoy time off and away from their work. With that, we learned too that we had a motorcycle accident on 40 a week and a half ago. The driver of that motorcycle passed away. That is the 7th traffic fatality we've had in Sawyer County in 7 months. Very concerned about that. The drug overdose fatalities continue. We've had too many of those as well. With everything else happening, and there's a lot of concern about COVID enforcement. Now with the masking as well, and everybody's spread thin, there's only so much you can do, and where you spend your resources is key. And our concern is some of these traffic fatalities with the reduction in traffic enforcement may be a key issue. So we did submit our 2021 budget to Mike and Tom, and I did ask for an increase in medical. We have not had an increase in medical since 2010, when we averaged 65 inmates a day. Last year, we averaged 101. We also are asking for an increase of 4 hours of mental health a week. So
When you say an increase of medical, you're asking for
medical services,
With
our contracted service,
and then that's like a line item then on the budget proposal?
correct.
How are your facilities holding up?
Overall, decent considering how old they are. I mean, it's, I guess as far as capital improvement, there was a couple requests that I submitted with our door system. And we're to the point, if we have one more issue with the doors, we're gonna have to have it done one way or the other. So, yeah, it's an old building, so we're doing the best that we can with it. Maintenance has been helping as well.
Dennis?
What about the electrical in dispatch on it? That's been taken care of?
I don't know.
That's a line item on the capital. We want to redo the electrical and the plumbing. The main plumbing lines are over in the basement where dispatch is. The main plumbing lines run over the top of dispatch. And we would like to modernize the plumbing there with new pipes and move them off to the side. So if there is a tragedy water-wise, it doesn't end up on all of the electronic components over dispatch, as well as rewire. It's been almost 20 years since that's been redone.
Wasn't there an issue in dispatch with the wiring running down?
There's been a lot of additions, and it instead of doing it properly and pulling some of the old wires out and configuring it as it should, it's a pile of wires. So we're looking at getting that all redone with an electrician. We've been working with Tim Hagberg on that, and he's in agreement that it would be in the best interest to redo that as well. So.
Any other questions for the sheriff? Mr. Rob?
Yeah, just another comment on enforcement issues. As you recall, when the Palm decision came out, that was a Supreme Court decision that struck down that Safe Ride Home state order, and that kind of left counties in the predicament of having to do their own orders, perhaps, if that situation kind of came around again. So that's why there was talk of updating our local ordinance for enforcement of local orders, should that need arise. As we had discussed prior, there's a work group for WCA that's looking into the issues and coming up with a knowledge base of things that should be in that kind of ordinance. So we had expected that to be ready and released by WCA before now so that we could discuss it. We haven't seen that draft. I think it's due either today or tomorrow, is what they're saying. It's supposed to be out. So we had that on the agenda as a placeholder in case that came out that we could discuss it. Since it hasn't come out, we pulled it off the agenda so that we can wait for that guidance to come out and then we can more carefully consider what should be in that ordinance and bring it back next month. So I just wanted to mention where that's at as far as the enforcement. We are under an emergency order, state order currently. So the enforcement of that happens, through that mechanism, not through a local health order. So.
Mr. Buckles.
Tom, do you know what phase or level Sawyer County's in? You know what I'm talking about? Where we are, what phase we're in with the pandemic, where we stand, what level are we, high, low?
Yeah, so we just went to, our health officer has established a green, yellow, red kind of situation. We were under green for a while. Now we are under red because we've had a few cases in this last week that shows that there is community spread. And so the public health officer has put us under red, which is, why, we're needing to be a little bit more careful, especially in meetings like this and whatnot. So the public health officer will be updating at the Health and Human Services Committee on Tuesday evening, and then we'll also be making another presentation to the board during the board meeting as well, just to keep you updated on current events.
Well, my whole thought on this whole thing, and back in March and April and May, when the pandemic was out, there was no cases around Sawyer County or the local areas, not so much. And they shut everything down. Now, it's galore. It's everywhere. Sawyer County, Rusk County, all the neighboring counties, and now they want to open everything back up. To me, it's backwards.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Slater.
Regarding the report that you're expecting from the Wisconsin Counties Association, you said bring that back to this committee next month. If it arrives in time, is that something that maybe should be on the full board agenda so we could discuss it as early as possible?
Well, we'll see what the guidance said. It's possible. I think it's, what's in that guidance, we'll be able to redraft, the draft that we had originally put out there for the ordinance. We can.
Well, to me, it sounds like the sooner we get something done, the better. We'll have direction then. So, unless there's some reason not to.
Well, just, I just want to make sure that everyone has proper kick at the cat and we take a look at things, so.
Like I said, it depends upon when it becomes available to us.
Right, and actually, I agree with Mr. Schluter in that if the county board can get it from there, there can be direction as to what committees should be looking at it. Because it's not just simply a public safety issue, it's also health and human services, public works, land forest, all that. All of them have some area of responsibility in that. But be that as it may. Any other questions for the sheriff? So I'm going to say something that's probably going to make me super likable. But Sheriff, I saw the statement that you released on the COVID enforcement. I commend you for the analysis that you did and the eloquence that you stated it. I know that there's a running tally of what is an ambiguous term of what sheriffs are going to enforce the masking order and what sheriffs are not. I'm going to say this because I want to say this to you. You did not say that you're not enforcing the masking order. What you're saying is that the masking order will be enforced if people needed it, if there were complaints and things to arise. I commend you for that because I know that we only have a certain amount of deputies to be able to be present, and to make sure that everyone's wearing a mask I think is an overstep of the responsibility, but then everyone has a responsibility for safety. And so if a business or an area is requesting enforcement, or if there's some kind of, imminent danger, I'm assuming, and I'm going to read into your statement that you're going to be there to, to provide support and to enforce whatever is necessary for the safety of the citizens. The one thing I want to add, and this seems to be forgotten, is that even though you're a constitutional officer, you have a discretion that is necessary for the enforcement. So I don't think this is outside the scope of your authority. So Sheriff, I want you to do that. I said this on record because I don't want you to feel like you're by yourself when you're making this kind of position. And since I'm already catching a lot of heat for some of the other actions that I have as a county committee chairman, I'm standing with you, and I'm not going to speak for the committee, but that's my position, Sheriff, and I'm letting you know that.
I believe this whole committee backs the sheriff on his decisions. There shouldn't be no problem with nothing like that.
Like
Ms.
you,
Dennis?
like you said, the COVID thing, opiate, you know what I mean, the drug thing, plus the accidents, you guys are overwhelmed. So, yeah, I think each person individually needs to take responsibility and wear the mask and just be safe. And we hope that you're being safe too, all of you.
Mr. Slater?
The only thing I would add to that, Helen, is wear the mask, drive carefully, obey the speed limit. And if it's at all possible, don't do drugs. It's a personal
Absolutely.
responsibility.
Thank you.
Anything else for the sheriff's report? We have animal control report. Sherry on the line, or any questions about the report submitted by Sherry? It's Shelton.
Yes.
It's Shelton.
Except that we miss her.
We do miss her. Moving on to the coroner's report. Mr. Promo, are you still with us? I hate to say it like that. Mr.
I'm
Promo,
here. I'm here. Can you hear me?
The floor is yours, sir.
There's not much other than what I wrote in my report. Been doing a lot of COVID tests on deaths in the homes. Got no negative or no positives at this point. I've been on scene with the sheriff and his people on some of these accidents, or well, all these accidents, and we're on the same page as far as what he was saying earlier. We do have an increase in drug use and a lot more fentanyl and methamphetamine use. Other than that, you know, all the other meetings that I've been in, you guys are up to date with what I have.
Any questions for Mr. Fromo?
No.
Thank you for your report, sir. Moving on to emergency management. Ms. Sanchez, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Floor is yours.
You have my report in front of you, pretty much just focusing on PPE requests and the decon trailer. We did get 2 LTE positions from the state approved. They're going to be doing orientation tonight. That'll alleviate my time up there working with the volunteers. So that'll give me a little bit more time to focus on my other duties. Otherwise, you have my report. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Sanchez?
We miss you.
I miss you guys too.
Keep up the good work, Pat.
Thank you.
We have the communications specialist report. Is Mr. Kruk on the line with us? Is there any questions regarding the report submitted by Mr. Kruk? Hearing none, moving on. Criminal Justice Coordinating Council update. The committee has not yet, hasn't met for the month of August. We will be meeting. We have 2 open positions, of which some people have indicated interest, and that'll be when we get that meeting scheduled, we'll be filling those positions, and then we're also weighing or considering the proposal from Justice Point to fill in the duties that were conducted by Ms. McNamer. And then Mr. Hoff, have we posted that position yet?
Well, that's what the discussion will be about. The Justice Point proposal would utilize Justice Point staff to help us over this period and guidance in the direction that we're going to be heading in preparation for the TAD grant next year that we would be trying to apply for. So we've got some work to do, just finding our direction in that committee. And so either we would be going with the Justice Point proposal, or hiring those positions as county positions. So that's the discussion for criminal justice the next time we meet.
Right. Well, I will say that our direction is probably does need to be focused, and I'll find Mr. Schuman, who's the vice chair for that committee, and meet with Mr. Hoff to get a date and time for that next meeting. Any questions on the CJCC? Hearing none, moving on to the ambulance report. Mr. Dunstan, is he online? Okay, we have a report submitted by Mr. Dunstan. Is there any questions? Mr. Schleter.
Yeah. By chance, I had a conversation with the town of Stinnett chairman and Bill Grote, and he vociferously questioned me about the town of Stinnett has submitted an RFP to our ambulance department, according to Mr. Grote, for the last 4 years, and for us to take over the town of Stinnett as we do the other 3 townships bordering our county in Washburn County, and has received no response whatsoever. I would like to know why that is. Also, he told me that they were losing the coverage of their ambulance company in the end of this year, I believe. And he would certainly like a proposal from Sawyer County so that they could consider that. I remember when we were going through the ambulance reorganization that we considered all 4 townships along our western border, and it was an economy of scale situation. The more people we had involved in our ambulance coverage, the more the cost could be spread around to more people, and the better for everybody. So I'm wondering if that has changed somehow, or something is going on that I'm just not aware of or maybe missed, or why aren't we going after that business?
Mr. Hoff, is that something you can look into and then just give us an update either at the next meeting or just send us an email with some kind of response?
Yeah, I'll check with Mr. Dunstan when he's back from vacation next week, and we can push something out, just a status update, and then we can tackle that at the next committee meeting as well, if there's something to talk about.
Okay, and if possible, if you need permission, then if you can just reach out to the Stinnett Township Board Chair and maybe have that discussion to kind of figure out what we're at with that.
Yes.
Right. Any other questions, any other comments regarding the ambulance report? We're now moving on to 2021 budget discussion. Mr. Hoff.
Yeah, this is another topic that we'll be talking about between now and November. Department budgets were due at the end of July, so we received all of the budgets. We just got the sheriff's department budget recently, and we haven't had a department review with the sheriff's department yet, but this is where we're at in the process. All the departments have turned in their budgets. Obviously, the most complicated and the most expensive departments, sheriff's department, law enforcement is one, ambulance is one, of course, you know, and highway and health and human services are other departments that are rather significant in their scope of services and cost combined. So we'll be reviewing the department budgets. Obviously, with the department budgets that were submitted, we're over our levy limit, which is normally what happens this time of year. We did get our net new construction number, which was a little bit higher this year than it had been in the past. We've been in, you know, the 0.74 range. I think we were 0.9 something for net new construction, which equates to about, you know, $90,000 instead of $75,000 that we'll get additional levy capacity for. So that extra $90,000 doesn't go too far when we've, you know, that's government wide. So, you know, as we incur cost increases in these department budgets, that's what pushes us over the levy limit. And then we work with departments to try and whittle that down where we can. And then we've also talked about issuing debt for the capital items, which is something that we haven't done historically, and you've allowed that to be contemplated within the budget. So as we work those things out, we'll be presenting more detail to committees and the board as we go along. For public safety committee purposes, the things that you want to keep in mind is what is the level of service that you want provided, not only for law enforcement, but for EMS services. As you recall, EMS services are outside the levy limits. Countywide service allows the levy exception for countywide EMS services. So we can levy for that separately, which we do, but that does also, increase the taxes. So, you need to think about the level of service that we're providing. Is it appropriate for the amount of money that we're spending, and if we're happy with that? So, that's outside the levy limit, so that doesn't affect the levy as opposed to the sheriff's department, which is inside the levy limits and has to fall within, that limit that we have, along with all the other departments. So, you'll be weighing, the importance of these things versus those things as we kind of try and fit everything within the budget. So as we talk more in detail, and the sheriff can present any specific changes that he's got in the budget, then we can contemplate if those fit or not. And that's what we do with every department. That's not special just for the sheriff. It's just what we do to do what we have to do to get under the levy limit. So that's where we're at with the process right now. You can have certainly discussion about, any concerns or questions about how we work through that budget process, or about the level of services that we're providing in each of those departments. You're open to have that discussion now if you have any questions or comments.
Any other discussion? Any questions from Mr. Hawk?
Good luck.
Chuck, I haven't asked you anything, and I apologize for doing that. Chuck, is there anything you wish to address regarding the budget?
Not on this, but I would like to address the sheriff. I was trying to raise my hand, but I couldn't.
I apologize, Chuck, that's on me. So the sheriff's still here. Chuck, you got the floor.
I would just like to say I don't envy the position that we're in 2020. Me having the 26 years in law enforcement, I never had to deal with what he's having to deal with. And when we're weighing out the facts of what could happen, the possibilities, what could happen, and the things that are actually happening. So the things that are actually happening with the fatalities and whatnot. So I stand 100% behind this. I don't envy the position, even dealing in 2020 with electronics and things I never dealt with. There were not inattentive driving of cell phones, which I see now on a daily basis as being the equivalent of drunk driving. Law enforcement in general has changed so much. And so, again, I just back 100% of the stance, where we're at, what we're doing, and how we're moving forward. So I appreciate it.
All right, moving on, future agenda items. Is there any items that the board would like to have added to a future agenda? Hearing on, correspondence reports from conferences, meetings, and other matters for discussion only. All right, Mr. Schleter.
What's happening with our Wisconsin Counties Association conference?
The conference in September has been canceled.
Okay.
And they're, I think, looking at alternatives. I don't know if they're going to do anything virtual or not, but the conference is canceled.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to give 3 minutes to this, Mr. Buckles. You can time me. You're as vice chair, you can regulate this part of the agenda. I have received numerous letters, emails, comments in the community, people coming up to me with their interpretation of what happened at the county board meeting. Mr. Zupo and I had a long discussion as to the chain of events regarding the representations. And I'm going to say a couple different things. One is, when a citizen wants to address the committee in public comments, Nobody responds from the committee component because that has been viewed as a deterrent for people to speak, and that they did not come to a committee meeting to be interrogated by county board members. And so it's been the practice of the committees and of the whole board to let the person speak, and then the committee will, or the body will respond in the manner that's appropriate as the chair determines. The other part of that is that when a committee member or when a person speaks in public comment, there's actually the record is recorded, but it's not recorded in the minutes. And that's also a practice that I wasn't aware of, but it's been an ongoing practice, and I'm not in a position to change that. In October 31st of 2019, there was a gentleman who came to the committee and asked that the Second Amendment Sanctuary County resolution, along with concerns with law enforcement, red flag laws, registration, and all those things were brought to the attention of the committee. The person was allowed to address. It wasn't on the agenda, but it was brought to the attention, and there was a discussion among the group to put that on the agenda. That's when this issue was first brought to the attention of the committee. What I said in the meeting is that this issue has been before the committee since November, since November, but it was October 31st. That is the first time that was brought in the form of a discussion. The gentleman wanted the committee to vote on it and to get it done, and that's not how the process works. And it's not the fault of the committee or of the citizen. There's a procedure that happens. There's a way that government is supposed to be conducted. So it was to be put on the December agenda, but there was an oversight, which is probably my fault, that I didn't ensure that didn't get put on the agenda. So that was brought up again in public comment. And then in January, everyone was on vacation, so it didn't come back on until February. February, we had another discussion, and there was an original draft that was brought forward. The Second Amendment sanctuary thing was a major issue with the committee. We did not want to be considered a sanctuary county because that was language, that's political rhetoric that was being offered in response to sanctuary cities regarding the immigration laws. And we didn't want to get involved with that kind of discussion. And then it was the first time that we started talking about what law enforcement was. So then March happens, and that's when, I can't say his last name, I keep forgetting how to say his last name, but Bill comes forward with his own draft. And so we had competing drafts that were brought forward that were not formally presented because we weren't ready to address this idea of sanctuary county. And so Bill brings his forward. He had sanctuary county in it, but he also wanted to recognize law enforcement because he had been someone that had been, I think he was a veteran and something else. And so there was some discussion. And then there was literally a discussion about how we could make this so that it wasn't so aggressive. And so sanctuary county was removed. And I say that because if you read the resolution, and I wish people would read the resolution, sanctuary is never mentioned at all. Nothing is mentioned in there about red flag laws. There's nothing in there except for a concern about what future legislation. So it's speculative. It is not binding. It's not binding. And so what's happening is, and this is what's happening to me, is that people are reading their own words into this resolution, and they're putting their own judgment and then passing it back on this committee. Now, I'm a pretty tough guy, and I can take a lot of criticism. I've been in positions where I will receive a lot of criticism, and I'll stand by whatever this committee has done. We modified this resolution, and we got a compromise from the people who were bringing it forward because they wanted stronger language. But they still came to the core group and said, can we at least honor the Second Amendment and honor the sacrifice of law enforcement? Because at that time is when the protests were starting to happen in Minneapolis. So the people who were bringing that scaled down some of their expectations to come to what was kind of a compromise. This was brought forward. It was made available to people, and however they wanted to participate, I can't make people read something. I can't make them come to a meeting. I can only do what I can do in a meeting, and I'm bound by certain restrictions. And I shared this with Mr. Zupal. Mr. Zupal had recordings, and so he was able to substantiate. And so he actually wrote an article for once that was not critical of me in terms of the analysis. And so the comments that have been disingenuous, the comments that I've done a disservice, that I've been disrespectful, that I've done all of these different things, I understand it, and I will accept whatever criticism, because, you know, the ability to speak freely means that you can say whatever you want. And I did an oath, Mr. Van Etten did an oath, Mr. Howie, we did this so that we could protect these amendments and so that they could be exercised by the citizens. And if our citizens wish to exercise their First Amendment rights to disparage my character, to come after me, or to make me somehow responsible for things of which I have no, you know, that is your right. And I will accept it and I will move forward with it. But that's the timeline. I've discussed this with Mr. Hoff. I've discussed it with other members of this committee, and I stand by that. And I will do, I just, it's a point of concern. So, Mr. Buckholz, I think my time has expired.
Yeah, I give you an extra 2 minutes.
That's all I got, so.
Thanks.
I'd just like to say, I am sorry that this is all happening. It's unfortunate. I just found out this morning that another member of this committee was threatened. I think that's outrageous. We did what we thought was right, and I'm done.
Yeah, I agree with Ellen and I agree with Mr. Slender. It's over, as far as I'm concerned.
Any other matters, any other comments, Mr. Van Etten?
I'd just like to say, you know, I'm with you. The bottom line is nobody rewrote the Constitution. We did not change anything. We're simply saying this is where we stand as a governing group, as a body, as people that represent the people, and it's getting out of hand. And there's no reason for that. And if anybody's being threatened and so forth, that's the whole point of why we have what we have and why we do what we do. It needs to be put in perspective. It needs to, you know, anybody can armchair quarterback. Anybody can try and pick something apart, and they can make it say what they want it to say to fit the criteria or agenda they're trying to push. The bottom line is, I believe we did the right thing, and I stand behind it, and I stand behind you.
Any other comments? Anybody else?
Assuming you mean Supervisor Slender. I did look over every single agenda, every minute. The competing drafts that you were referring to, as far as I can tell, were not available to the public. And as far as interpretation, this county is now on a national website stating that it is a Second Amendment sanctuary county. It is lit up. It is on there. So I'm not making the interpretation. Obviously, I'm not threatening you. I am just raising concerns as a citizen, and that we have the opportunity to review and time to be able to present those concerns by reviewing ahead of time. Whatever you're doing in taking your calls in October or taking your calls outside of this meeting, that's not something I have access to. If you have drafts, citizens should be able to see the drafts. So again, not threatening you, just stating as a citizen that I would like the opportunity to review things ahead of time. Thank you.
What website did you reference?
I can find it for you. I even believe it's in one of your emails, but I can find it.
You got an email on it this morning as well. It's, yeah, they got us listed as a sanctuary county. We can't control that. They can say.
Well, this was some other group somewhere. Yeah,
Yeah, we don't even know who they are. They don't define what a sanctuary county is on their website. It's, yeah.
That is not what we did.
Yeah, people can call us
that's why
anything they want to
was-
call us, but it's not what we did, not what you did.
We're also supposed to be America's Dairyland, you know, also #1 in something, or, oh no, muskie capital of the world. I mean, I know that people, the lumberjack capital. I know people in Washington State were mad at people in Wisconsin because that was state. So with that, this meeting is adjourned. I want to thank everyone for their participation.